Good morning, West and the world. Welcome to your review video for Tuesday, October the 22nd, following our continuation this morning of our lecture on the Industrial Revolution. In the past 2 weeks, we've concentrated all of our attention on two events that bear the name of revolution. The French Revolution and the massive change in Europe's political thinking that it entailed, and the Industrial Revolution, a massive period of previously unimaginable growth in European economic life and the related changes in Europe's social life that come about as a consequence. On Thursday, when we introduced the Industrial Revolution, we answered a simple question. Why does this happen in England before it happens anywhere else in the world? Today, we turned our attention to the larger questions of the transformations brought about by industrialization, first in England, then in Northern Europe, then later in the United States, and eventually in many parts of the world. There's no simple way to summarize the transformations that are brought about, but we can point briefly here to some of the big ones. Think especially, of course, about the changes or the growth that come about in urban contexts. This is the moment when Western civilization sees its population balance shift from being primarily rural to being primarily urban. In the world today, of course, industrialized states usually have 80 to 90% of their population that lives in some kind of urban context. It's a massive change, and with it come massive challenges. Public health and the prevention of epidemic diseases like cholera. Problems of dishonesty that come about in terms of the provision of an adequate and safe food supply. Problems like prostitution and drunkenness that become characteristic signs of what some people see as the moral decay that urban living brings about. We get new social classes as well, a booming, flourishing bourgeoisie, an industrial middle class, for whom these are perhaps the best of times, but we get also a struggling and massive working class, for whom these are likely the worst of times. The challenges for working class people are many, in their living conditions, and in their working conditions in particular, whether in cotton mills, or in coal mines, or even in situations of domestic servitude. The condition of life for people who live in who are members of the working class is incredibly challenging. The challenges of these times lead many to think about the problem of reform. And as we concluded, we introduced some of the measures that are being taken. We talked about the approach to child labor and how this stirs for the first time the English Parliament to intervene directly in the affairs of its private businessmen, an unprecedented step at the time. But we saw also that there are men like Charles Dickens or William Booth who in their own way are calling for the transformation of society for the common good. But of course it's not just people who have relative status, literary figures and others who are making these calls for changes. Workers themselves are unifying in trade unions, in socialist enterprises, or in sabotage organizations like the Luddites, trying to bring about an improvement in the conditions of their world. The extent to which they fail or succeed in achieving those aims will be something that we turn our attention to after Thursday's exam. Good luck with your study prep. Feel free to leave me any questions you might have. See ya on Thursday morning.